Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I'm so Ray. My videos are about love, infinity, creation, energy, because we're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. This is who we are. We are the human race. This is precisely who we are. I want to make this video is about a duality principle. Okay, I'm making these videos about duality principles. It's based on proto-meta systems. It's the systems of systems, right? The first systems that originated everything and created everything in the first place. So this duality principle is this notion of moon and sun, the moon and the sun. Okay, so moving away from the moon, essentially, because the moon is a problem. It's a big problem that we have here on planet Earth. A big problem. It's our biggest problem is the moon. That's the biggest problem that we have right now. Is the moon and what the moon is and what the moon represents. Okay, so the moon is a big problem. So part of our evolution as the Republic of Planet Earth is to scuttle the moon and remove it from our orbit because it's a problem. The moon is a problem. It's not a natural satellite as it is described in mainstream environments. It's actually a spaceship, an occupying force, an invading force that is cataloged to planet Earth. Right? And it's creating all sorts of problems, and it led to the fallout of the Ice Age. And all the things that took place here on Earth as a result of the Ice Age. The ice caps and all these different things are a direct result of the tidal locking of this spaceship in our orbit. Okay, it's a big problem. The moon is a problem because we are a sun-centric species. Okay, so we are sun-centric. This is who we are. This is the nature of our species. This is the very nature of our species. We see, we are sundials. We stare at the sun. The sun is out there. So we stare at the sun. We open the portal and we build the bridge, meaning we evolve into infinity because we are the biology of infinity ourselves. Because the reason why we have a spaceship out there that is an occupying force tidal locked to our central planet is because of who we are. Because we're not just a random species in a random galaxy, in a random little point in the universe as we're led to believe. We are the central species. We are the central sun. Our sun is the central sun of the cosmos. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? Well, the universe. The universe is an electromagnetic field, is spherical, and the epicenter of the singularity is our sun. So we are the planet at the epicenter of the central sun of creation that created everything. All the light, everything that exists in our universe was created by the light that came out of the singularity of the central sun, our sun. So that, what does that make us? Well, that makes us the first species, the most ancient species, the most evolved species, because we are ourselves the image of the creator, which is the central sun. We are ourselves spherical energy. We're light beings ourselves. Meaning we have an electromagnetic field, which is the human heartbeat, which is electrical in nature, is energy, biochemical. And we are that. We're spherical in nature. This is who we are. So we had these invaders from outer space that showed up into our planet and tidal locked the moon to it to enslave us. So that's just the way it is, guys. It's just the way it is. So, okay, so let's talk about it. How is it that this happened? How is this even possible? Because we are that, we're sun, so we stare at the sun. And the energy of the sun comes straight into our eyes, and then we supercharge ourselves, so we are that, because, you know, this is who we are. This is just our nature, right? It's infinite. We are infinite. But because of the moon and all the calendars and everything that is being created, all these tidal locking that created the ice caps and all that, because our planet didn't have a moon. Because the fact is that moon spaceship is actually reverse engineered with our own technology that these invaders used because we ourselves manufacture planet Earth. So we were the ones who manufactured planet Earth because originally we are still the first species, but we didn't come from planet Earth per se. We created planet Earth. So we came from the proximity of the central sun, which is the sun where we are orbiting. Okay? So we came from the proximity of it, meaning that it was a natural planet, a rocky planet. Okay? It was an actual rocky planet, not this planet that we manufacture. It was a rocky planet because what happens is that the closest, so the sun, right? The central sun has an electromagnetic field of its own and it has a lot of energy. So you need an orbit because if a rocky planet gets too close to that orbit, it's just gonna disintegrate. Okay, it's just gonna disintegrate. That's just the way it is. Okay, it's just going to disintegrate and it's not gonna be able to sustain our life as the way it is. So essentially, what ended up happening, we came from a planet in the proximity of the central sun where we evolved and we became one with infinity ourselves because we have all the competitive advantages because by being at the epicenter of the universe, we came before everyone else because all the light moves out from the central sun and we're the first point where that light meets. And then we form as a species and then all the other species come as a result of us later on. So they came after, so we're the most ancient. So that gave us a competitive advantage to evolve into infinity, which is who we are. Okay, and because this is who we are as a species, right? Because this is who is as our nature, we were able to eventually have the conditions to essentially become the assistant of infinity itself, creation itself, the central sun. Because we understood what the central sun was and we knew that we were created by it. So what we started to do is to harness the energy of the central sun ourselves. And because everything was spherical, we started to realize the electromagnetic field of everything, the central suns and everything. We realized that the best way to essentially be creators ourselves was to create spherical technology. And our spherical technology was that because everything is spherical that has energy. So if you understand these, then our species did just that. So we started to create spherical devices and technologies that were harnessing the energy of the central sun. And with that energy, we would just have infinite energy output, meaning we would have spaceships that were spherical in nature and would allow us to move everywhere in the universe, not just our neighborhood, no, the whole of it. So, because we were the center, right? The epicenter is faster to get everywhere from there. So, what happened? Well, very simple. So, what happened was that because we were becoming this incredible species, the most advanced, the most evolved, the most technologically developed, the most ancient, our biology is the biology of infinity, being the first, we started to realize that, well, we can do much more because we were essentially, by harnessing the energy of the central sun, the electrogravitics that came as a result of it gave us the telemetry. What? Because remember, the central sun is the singularity of the universe. Because the singularity per se, the universe per se, is just an electromagnetic field. So then that electromagnetic field has a singularity, which is the point of release, and that's the central sun that fills the space structure of that sphere, the surface of that sphere, which is what we know as a universe, all the galaxies and all that. So because of all these, because of all the things that happen, so the singularity is the singular point where all points meet. So the tension on the electromagnetic field, everything that exists in the universe connects to that point through the filaments of this energy, this electromagnetic field. So by us tapping into the energy of the central sun with our singularity devices, what we were doing is actually gaining access to the entire telemetry of the electromagnetic field, because remember, it's the electromagnetic field that is feeding that singularity. So all the points of everything is coming out of it. So by us harnessing that energy, we were also capable of reading the telemetry of everything that exists in the universe, which gave us a competitive advantage because, and this is why we are the central species, because we are the consciousness and self-awareness of infinity itself, of consciousness, the biological expression of the central sun. This is who we are. So because of it, we're one with it. And because we're one with it, this is our DNA. This is why we're highly coveted, and that's why the moon showed up and all that. So essentially, what happened was that because this is who we are, light moves. So we saw light moving across the cosmos because we came from the central epicenter of it. So we had all this infinite number of cycles to evolve into understanding it for what it is. So see how galaxies will form, how solar systems will form, how planets will form, and everything. because we had spaceships to move around and see and learn. And the more we learned, the more advanced we became, because the closer we became with that energy of creation, that infinity. So there was a point that we reached in which we were so advanced. In fact, we are more advanced now than that. But at the time, so what happened was that we were creating spherical energy, right? Remember? Spherical devices, singularity devices, harnessing the energy of the central sun. And because this is exactly what we were doing, we had these spherical technologies that were our spaceships, and also outside our spaceships technologies, so that were all spherical in nature. So because they're big and things, we wouldn't ourselves manage them, because this is outside space. So what we would do, we would command them with we would interface with a consciousness of awareness. So how do you interface how can your consciousness interface and your self-awareness interface with an object outside you? Well, the way you do that is by encoding your DNA within it. So when you encode your DNA within it, and then you encode that technology within your DNA, then you can have this interface. And by having this interface, and our thoughts and our consciousness can command them. So the technologies would do the work, the heavy labor, and then we would just command them, right? So what is the meaning of this? Well, the meaning of this is that eventually what we would do is read the telemetry of the universe and assist the sun, because the light takes a while to move, right? So because we were faster than that, because by harnessing that energy, right, you are creating electrogravitics, meaning you're canceling out the gravitational forces around the sphere of the electromagnetic field that you're creating, this spaceship or whatever. But you're still harnessing the energy. And that energy is the harnessed energy, but the gravity gets canceled out as a result. So we created, our spaceships had these canceled out gravitational fields around them, so we can move anywhere without the relativity of gravity. So by doing that and having the telemetry of the universe, the whole readings of everything that there is, we could map out vectors, coordinates, locations in space within the space structure of the universe, and show up whatever we wanted, because we were, by identifying it, we have the telemetry of the filaments. So we would just show up, manifest ourselves there immediately. No time has passed or anything. We didn't travel there. We just manifest there because we had the quantum entanglement. It's a life state. So by doing so, what is the meaning of this? Well, by doing so, we will show up over there before light itself travels from the central sun. But because we have this infinite device of energy contained within our technology, we ourselves can deploy that energy. So what is the meaning of that? Well, the meaning of that is that because we have this ability now, what we can do, right, is show up in a specific coordinate where there is a telemetric differential, or like a electrogravitics differential, meaning a gradient pressure. So because of the temperature differences in that space, it generates vacuums, and these vacuums are spherical vacuum thresholds. They're bubbles. So what you do, once you identify a threshold of that specific bubble, what you do, you insert that energy in it, you inject it, you release the energy in it, in the bubble. So the bubble gets supercharged with this energy that you're injecting that meets the threshold of that spherical vacuum threshold. And then that energy, because it's energy, is released in the epicenter of the singularity. And that singularity is what becomes the central sun of that universe, or sorry, of that galaxy that you're creating. So we became galaxy creators as a species. We just go and show up and assist. You see, that became that. It became our culture. And we were embedding everything in our DNA. Why? Because we are the biology of infinity. So everything that exists, remember, the telemetry of everything comes out of the energy of the central sun. And we are that biology there. So everything was encoded within our DNA. So everything that exists in the universe, everything that there is and will always be, is already inside of us, our DNA. This is why we're so sought after by these moon worshippers, because we are it. We are everything. We are creation. We created them in the first place. So what happens? What happens? So it's very simple. It's very simple. Very simple, right? So we show up and we started to do that. It became our civilization because we can just show up anywhere. We were the most advanced species in everything that we knew existed at the time, our universe, within the electromagnetic field of it. We understood that. So because we have more energy than just enough energy to create a galaxy, what we would do is accelerate the process, meaning we would further accelerate the process by releasing more energy into the electromagnetic field of that singularity. And by doing that, everything, the process will accelerate. And because time is relative to your level of energy and density, then we would can just observe an infinite number of cycles based on the energy rate that we were releasing into that electromagnetic field, meaning that we would accelerate the process. For them, it feels normal at a normal rate, but for us, it's just accelerated, and we see the whole process. So we would see the life forms that would emerge. Why? Because we were studying them, because we were learning about infinity, because we ourselves were infinity. We are. So you see, we did that for an infinite number of cycles, but we couldn't get out of our electromagnetic field, the universe. We were contained within it. So we wanted to go beyond. So we realized that after a while, what we really needed to do was to actually evolve ourselves further so we can comprehend beyond what we could see. And the only way that we knew that was possible was by getting closer to the energy of the central sun, which is what created us in the first place. So maybe in that way, our biology would evolve into something higher. So, but no rocky planet could be closer to the central sun because they would disintegrate and it wouldn't be able to sustain our lives, the atmospheres and all that. So what we started to realize is that, well, if this is the case, we need to manufacture a planet that will sustain our life form, our DNA, and it won't disintegrate, so we can lock it to the central point, the closest point that we can orbit around the central sun that can sustain our DNA structure as a species, so we can evolve further into infinity. Okay, and this is precisely what we did. And because we're the masters of the universe, what we ended up doing was we can go anywhere, and we created an infinite number of galaxies by that time. There were many galaxies created before us because when we were learning, or that were naturally created after that we weren't creating, they were just naturally being created, and we would just let that natural process happen as well. So you see, all sorts. So we would what we started to do as a species, our objective became to manufacture planet Earth. And it would become this incredible planet where it would host our DNA and also life forms that would create the perfect ecosystem for our DNA to evolve into infinity, which is what we wanted in the first place. So what we started to do was to essentially sample the best specimens in the entire universe from the galaxies that we created plus the galaxies that were created before us or after us. And we started to sample everything that would be the best of the best for us to have the perfect planet. Okay? For us to have the perfect planet, the perfect environment for our DNA to evolve further into infinity. And this is exactly what we did. So that's why all these species on the surface have our DNA encoded in them. Right? Because we ourselves encoded the DNA in them so they can actually inhabit the surface of the planet Earth, which is a technology that we created ourselves with a spherical technology. So we can inhabit it. Okay? So that's why DNA, human DNA, is everywhere on the surface and all these specimens. Because we essentially did it. Okay? So that's just the way it is. So this is who we are. Hey. And I am a descendant of our ancestors who built the planet. Okay? So I am this. So this is why I know these things, because I can tap into my DNA memories and understand them, because I stare at the sun and I love with the energy of the heart, which is the highest energy of creation. So, and we all these, by the way, we all these. So we just have to stare at the sun and love. And then our DNA will be unlocked, because love is the key that unlocks our infinity, our DNA structure. So we understand and remember. Because why am I explaining all this? Because we need to understand why the moon is there, right? This is the duality principle of the moon and the sun, and us in the epicenter. So we manufacture planet Earth, right? And we title locked it to the central point where we could actually be the closest. And the planet this is an incredible. Planet Earth is the greatest invention in the universe. It's the greatest creation that is always being created. That's ever been created. And we created it ourselves. My ancestors did. my direct ancestors. So, and this is who we are. This is who we are. So, if we understand these, right? If we understand these, then we showed up here and we title locked the planet, the spaceship planet, to the central sun of the universe. And then we evolve further and we stay here for an infinite number of cycles. And eventually, remember, how do we manufacture planet Earth in the first place? How do we manufacture planet Earth in the first place? Well, with spherical technology, right? That we would interface with our DNA. So essentially, all that was encoded in our DNA, right? And to be in the planet, you needed to have a DNA structure so you can actually roam the planet. Because if it's the technology, it's the density, because we're so close to the central sun, otherwise you would disintegrate. Because you need to have the space structure density that allows you to be here in the first place. So, because as I said, we are the most sought after technology that there is, our planet. So, what happened? Well, very simple. What happened was that we did that, and we did it very well, and it became an incredible success. So we evolved further because we stayed here for an infinite number of cycles. So essentially what ended up happening was that we ended up laying down the tools that we used to create the planet in the first place. Right? Why? Because when we started to interact in the new environment that we created, remember, this is not a real planet per se, a rocky planet. We manufacture these, which means that everything is encoded within our DNA, which means that we ourselves, with our thoughts and consciousness, once your DNA structure is unlocked, you can command everything that there is, the climate. You can command everything with our thoughts and consciousness, because we are these. This is the species that we are. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? Well, it's very simple. The meaning of that is that we've evolved into our technologies ourselves. That's why we laid down the tools, because everything was encoded in our DNA. But remember, we were harnessing the energy of the central sun with our spherical technologies, and then we would interface with them so they would create the planet that we inhabit right now as a result, and all the galaxies and all the things that we did, right? Okay, so what is the meaning of this then? Well, it's very simple. The meaning of this is that because of what we've done, we've evolved into infinity even further, because our biology, with our eyes, we started to essentially, our eyes became the channel. So we started to channel the energy of the sun through our eyes rather than having to harness it with a device that then we would interface with, and then the device would use that energy to create. So we ourselves became the media, the medium, everything. Right? So we would channel the energy ourselves with our biology, and then with our consciousness and self-awareness, instead of commanding and interfacing with an object, we ourselves will be doing it with our thoughts and consciousness, because the energy is within us, because we're channeling it already. So how is it that we could do it? Because the technology was encoded in our DNA in the first place. So our DNA became that. It became a new level in which we ourselves became the technology, but we're still biological. So we didn't need the sphere, and that's why our electromagnetic field is spherical, because we ourselves are our spherical technology now. Our electromagnetic field is just that. This is who we are. So amazing. So what happened? Well, we did that remember, our objective was to evolve into infinity, which is what we've done. To what? To get outside the universe. Right? To get outside the universe. Because we were contained within the electromagnetic field of the universe. Essentially, what we ended up doing when we evolved is that, because the universe was what we knew, the telemetry of it. So what we started to do was, as a collective, as a species, all of us in sync with our heart and the energy of creation and our minds, we started to ourselves create. But rather than the technologies, as one, you see. So individually and collectively, both scales. So what ended up happening is that, because then we realized that our universe was just one of an infinite number of universes contained within infinity. So infinity itself has its own electromagnetic field of creation, which is infinite. and it has its own singularity, and that it presents its consciousness and self-awareness, and from there everything is created. And the light that creates that energy of creation, love, that energy is what creates the central suns of universes, and we're one of them. So when we realize that, and we realize that we became it because we are infinity ourselves with the consciousness and self-awareness of it, then we started to realize, well, it's ourselves that creates with the thoughts and consciousness. So we started to do so. So we would find exactly, we became, instead of becoming the assistants of the central sun and create galaxies, we started to do that, but for infinity itself. So we would, as a species, help assist by creating new infinities with our thoughts and consciousness, new universes. We would find the space and then release all that energy with our thoughts and consciousness and build electromagnetic fields of the size of a universe. Because that's what we knew, right? We knew universes because we came from a universe and we became the masters of that universe, right? And so we started to create central suns and started to do that to infinity. So eventually that's the species that we became. So, and we would do the same as we would do with the galaxy. So we would further release more energy in the electromagnetic field of that universe. So we would accelerate the process. So we would see how these life forms would generate as a result of it. So what we ended up doing, we were creating the conditions for our duality, meaning there were species that were created as a result of our creation. And these species were the opposite of us. So they didn't like us. So they ended up showing up, and because they weren't us, they didn't have our DNA and all that, they couldn't really inhabit the planet, but they wanted it because of what it is, right? Planet Earth, what it is. It allowed us to evolve into this, and then we became what we became. So they wanted that, right? So essentially what they ended up doing is, long story short, they reverse engineer all our spherical technology that allow us to create planet Earth in the first place. And then they use that to create the moon. You see, that's why the moon is spherical. And because the moon has the properties that it doesn't disintegrate when it comes within the proximity of the central sun, because it's built out of the materials that were reverse engineered, from our own technologies. But it's a shell, right? It's not a real planet because it's primitive. It's just there to as an invading force. So it was essentially created to come here and create the conditions to change our nature, to make us rely on it. So essentially it changed everything, and the beings that came out of it eventually became the Babylonian civilization, and they created this notion of base 60 and base 10 and all these primitive systems of time based on the base 60 and all that, and calendars to rule over humanity, because all sorts of events happen. So this video is not about that. You can refer to previous videos about it, but eventually that's what the moon is. So the moon is essentially our polarity. It showed up, created by these entities that wanted to control us because of who we are. So, but it failed and stuff, and this is why I'm having these conversations, because otherwise this is like secret, right? But how do I know this? Because they have been defeated. This is why. So, but we are here, and we still have the legacy of the moon, right? We still have the legacy of the moon, and the moon needs to be scattered. And we're going to scatter that with our technology, our spherical technology, because remember, it was learning curve. So why did we become vulnerable to this object? Because in our evolution, we weren't fully aware of who we were. So we thought that by evolving into the technology ourselves, we could lay down the tools that allow us to manufacture the planet in the first place, where we were creating all this stuff, where we evolved into what we became. So we were essentially unaware that our own tools can be used against us, which is what the moon is. So essentially, we are in a new state of evolution, is the fact that we are it, but we also need to use our technology. Because in that way, we are inhabiting a planet to host our life form. So we cannot allow these parasites to do what they've done to us since the fallout of the Ice Age. Right? All these parasites that showed up here and created all these slavery systems. Right? To do all sorts of nonsense. So because they have been defeated, now because we have awakened as a species and we understand what happened to us, the next step is very simple. Is us rebuilding everything with our technology. And this is why I have provided everything that we need. The blueprints, the prime mover. I have provided everything, all the equations, all the energy. So the only thing that we have to do now is to love. And by love, I mean love with the energy of our hearts and stare at the sun as sundials and compass. And doing this to infinity. Doing this to infinity because this is how because it's all about gamma and plasma. Because there is plasma in our bodies, and plasma is energy, but it operates within, because what happens, the moon, the big problem with the moon, apart from all the nonsense, is that because it created this resonance that is artificial, induced because it's hollow in the middle, and that hollowness creates this resonance that acts like a sort of funnel. And remember that I was telling you that we would accelerate, right? We would accelerate by increasing the energy of the electromagnetic field of a universe or a galaxy. We would accelerate this growth, right? So we would accelerate the time so we can see it, but it wouldn't affect us because we're immortal. That's the thing. We're energy. We're infinite energy. We don't really die. Once we understand our nature and we remove the moon, then we all go back to a normal state. You see? Full awareness of who we are and everything happens, but we need to get rid of the moon first. We are doing it anyway already. This is already happening. But understand that the moon is our polarity. Is a duality principle, is the opposite, right? Moon, sun, because we're sun-centric. So with the energy of the sun, we evolve into this, so we would accelerate everything, right? Because we're energy infinite, we're immortal. This is our DNA. We don't die. We're energy. Energy doesn't get destroyed. It's forever. So this is who we are with the biology and the consciousness of infinity itself. This is why we're so coveted, because we're the only species that can be like this, right? So essentially we were accelerating things, right? So, but then what is that object? It's like a funnel. So it does the opposite. Rather than accelerating because it's primitive, it decreases. So it contains things within a bandwidth. And then the system of that bandwidth is this base 60 system, which slows down everything to a level of consciousness. And because it's a resonance, because it's hollow and it has all sorts of properties, because it's spherical and it uses the energy of the sun to charge itself, so it creates this embedding, right? This artificial resonance, right? Which is essentially, it's like when you blow a funnel, like you blow some sort of trumpet, right? You have this sound is similar to that, but at a frequency that is not audible, because that's precisely the point. It has to be a frequency above us, so we cannot be conscious of it. So essentially, what it does, it kind of like it dormants our DNA, because it limits our senses to certain bandwidths. Like, for example, if you're not staring at the sun and getting the energy of the sun to beat the system, which is what we've done, what I've done essentially is to stare at the sun and accelerate myself outside the system so I could defeat them, which is what I've done. So, yeah. And because of that, I can talk about these things. So, essentially, what is the meaning of these? Well, it's very simple. The meaning is that by doing what I've done, right, went outside the system, then I was able to defeat it. Because I wasn't controlled by the system. Why? Because my senses weren't within the bandwidth of the system. Because the bandwidth of the system is limiting our senses to a level of dormancy. Like, for example, light, right? In theory, the highest light that we can see is violet, right? But when you start to stare at the sun, there's infinite energy out of the sun, so you start to see other stuff, which is what I do. So because of that, I was outside the system, and it's just because it's not only your sight, it's all its senses, the sixth sense, what we call the third eye, the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, so you can start to evolve into who we understand who we are, which is tapping into our DNA. So by doing all these things that I've done, I was able to defeat them, right? And this, and the final, was the 26th of May, 2023, when the Republic of Planet Earth was founded. So that's when we defeated them as us, as a species, because we went outside the system. because of the energy of the sun, which is essentially what allows us to accelerate ourselves back again to understand what was happening to us. This funnel that showed up, right? And did all that, and the systems behind it, which is all the fantasies and illusions. So you see, is that duality, is moon, which is nonsense, and the sun, because the moon is a fantasy illusion, is a parasite, is trying to behave as if it was the sun, but at a density in which they can control, because it torments humanity so they can manipulate it. But they've been defeated, utterly defeated. So because the system is primitive in a way, remember, it was reverse engineered from our own tech, because it didn't have the ability to really do what they wanted, which is for us not to be able to see the sun. And for them to do that, they need to essentially do all sorts of problems that covers the atmosphere so there's no sunlight coming in, right? But they cannot do that. So they were limited to like creating the patterns because of the ice caps to have some atmosphere that would create clouds and, and do cloud seeding and stuff, so they can cover the sun and manage civilization, so we don't awaken, so we don't go up, we don't beat the system. But that happened, so we beat the system, and by beating the system we destroyed it because it became obsolete. It's an obsolete system because it's a system of slavery. But we all need to go back to our normal state, which is the sun-centric species that we are, and because we have learned our lessons because of the Ice Age and everything that has happened ever since the Babylonians showed up with their moon, right? So we have learned that we cannot lay down our tools, meaning we cannot just use our infinite consciousness of awareness as compasses, our biology, but we also need to use our spherical technology so we can guard ourselves against these evil forces, right? So essentially that's it, right? That's it. So, and because how do we tap into our technology? Well, when you stare at the sun, you accelerate yourself. So you tap into your DNA memory. So you activate your plasma in your body with the gamma energy that you're getting from the sun. And then you manifest your technology with your consciousness and self-awareness because it's encoded in our DNA. So when we do these, then we can, as a civilization, which is what we're doing already, scuttle the moon and fully dismantle it, because the moon is a big problem. As I said, because before the moon showed up and all that happened, we didn't have ice caps. And in fact, the positioning of the planet wasn't the way it was. It was different, right? It was different because the moon wanted to tidal lock it in a way in which it would create the conditions for all the things that they've done and align it with the star system where they come from, which is Maya, it's constellations, Pleiades, it's some of the mythologies that they come up, that's where they come from. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that once the moon is out of our orbit, which is going to be very soon, really, when that's done, then we're going to go back to our normal orbit, our natural orbit around the sun. So we're going to have a day and a night, but our days are going to be longer. They're not going to be this system, because this 24-hour thing is precisely part of this funnel because it's based on base 60. So they needed to create a day around the moon. So it's nonsense. Our days are longer, way longer. Our day on Earth is way longer when we don't have an object, a parasite, doing what it's doing. So the days are way longer. And also the nights are longer. But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because it's the polarity of it, right? It's fine. So because it's our natural environment, because the nature of the planet changes, and because we're not held into this, right, this magnet, right, doing all this nonsense. That's why there's ice caps, because ice is that. Ice is what? Well, ice is a state that is there because of that. Because of you got this thing holding the polarity, freezing the natural movement into this state so it doesn't move as it should, right? Because it's the poles, right? They're frozen. So it makes the object slower because and it creates all sorts of environments that are terrible, like all these clouds that are all nonsense. Because in reality, because when the moon is gone, we're going to go back to what it used to be before the moon. which is what it used to be before the Ice Age, before all this nonsense, before the Babylonians showed up with the slavery system. So what is it going to be like? Well, you know how we have the equator and it feels very nice in the equator. Well, the whole planet will be an equator. So the weather will be equatorial weather. It will be equatorial weather, meaning it will be nice everywhere. So it will be summer all year long. And very nice, breezy nights. Very nice in the low 20s. And during the day, 30s. Very nice weather. Very nice. Incredible weather. Okay? And then all the ice is gonna go. And because of all the ice gonna go, that means all the clouds are gonna go. So we're gonna see the sun all day. Every day, all day. From sunrise to sunrise. There will be no clouds. No clouds. There will be no ice caps. There will be no nonsense. No nonsense. So then, what is the meaning of this? Well, the meaning is that when the ice cap melts, because the moon is not going to be there, what does that do? Well, that means that everything becomes luscious again. And all this ice goes away, and that means everything goes green again. And then we're going to be able to see all the hidden ruins that are purposely hidden under the ice caps of our civilization before the Ice Age, which were the epicenter. Because the planet will go back to its normal orbit, and then you would see that because it changes, the orbit would change. You see that this incredible civilization that is hidden under the ice caps that we built before the Ice Age, right? Our epicenters, where my ancestors come from. Because that used to be the equator of the planet before all the nonsense. So, meaning like the real equator of it, even though the whole weather felt like an equator because we didn't have a moon doing nonsense. So, you see, we're going to have all that visible to everybody, our ancient technology and who we are. And obviously, we're an incredible species. We are amazing. So what is the meaning of this? Well, the meaning of that is that we're going to be free again, which we are. We're the Republic of Planet Earth, but fully, like every human would actually be able to have spherical spaceships and go around the universe, because this is true freedom. It's going and because we have created an infinite number of universes. So because we're going to go back and use our technology, not only to scuttle the moon, but also to move around again. And we're going to be able to manufacture planets. And this is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. We're going to manufacture planets tidal locked to the central suns of all the universes that we have created with our consciousness of awareness because of the species that we are. And this is what the Republic of Planet Earth is. We are a peaceful, benevolent species. We're no slavers. We're none of this nonsense. We're the opposite of that. We're a benevolent species. You see, and then you see, Earth itself would change. It would look different. It would look like it's supposed to look. There will be no ice, there will be no clouds. It would only be an eternal sun. Day and night, longer days, breezy nights, beautiful everywhere. Everything will be green and luscious. And we're going to be able to see all our civilization that is hidden under the ice caps. Everything would come back to what it used to be before the moon showed up, because the moon is a problem, as I said. So that's that. But then, because we only have manufactured at this day the one planet, we're going to have to use our technologies again to manufacture more planets, because this is just what the Republic of Planet Earth is, because we can. And because we have defeated them. You see, the slavers, they have been defeated. There's nothing they can do. And if there is any of them still alive, they're going to just become witnesses of the scuttling of the moon and everything. And they would have to accept the terms, which is we are all free and we're the Republic of Planet Earth. And they're citizens of the Republic of Planet Earth. If they have a human heart, they're citizens. Otherwise, they can leave the planet and go back to where they come from, which is Maya. And go over there and have a nice existence over there, if they can. If they cannot, well, they would have to accept the terms of the Republic of Planet Earth, which is infinite energy, infinite creation, infinite love, and no moon. So, you see, it's very simple. It's very simple. So, that's what it is. So you see, it's this duality principle. And this duality principle is precisely this, is moon and sun. So it's moving away from this nonsense, from the shadow, from the moon, from all this nonsense, slavery, into who we really are before the moon showed up, the sun. We're sun-centric. Because our sun is a special sun, because it's a central sun of creation. This is who we are. We are the central sun of creation. This is who we are. Our sun is the epicenter of the universe, the cosmos. And we are inhabiting it in our planet, in our orbit. Because we created this planet. This is the species that we are. We are the human race. You see, we are an incredible species. That's why. So all this nonsense about us being alone in the universe, this is all lies. Part of the moon worshippers cult. Right? All the lies. It's all lies. We're not alone. We're the first ones. We're the first ones. We're the most ancient. We're the smartest. We're the most evolved. We have just been going through a hiccup because of these moon worshippers. But in the scale of existence, these few thousand years that happened since the Ice Age is nothing. This is just history. All right? It's a history footnote. It's what it is in our ancient legacy, because as we start to awaken, which is what we're doing with our DNA, then we're all going to start to have access to all of DNA, which is the DNA of everything that exists. Which means that we're going to remember precisely what happened before the moon and then the future. Because remember, the moon is the opposite of what we are. We would accelerate energy, right? And accelerate the creation of universes and galaxies. But what's the moon? Is primitive technology, slavering. So it's the opposite. It's slowing it down so they can control it. It's the opposite, right? But what is the meaning of this? Well, because we understand the duality now of all this nonsense. Time as the idea that most people think, as the citizens of the Republic of Planet Earth, humanity, all of us, all the human hearts, who we are, this idea that you think you die, right? Oh, it's a life cycle of 100 years or so. It's because of all these lies and all these systems, right? But once that is out, we go back to a normal state of infinite self-awareness and infinite consciousness with our senses, and we're eternal, and we just light, infinite light. Infinite light. So who we are. Because we already are it, but we will be just on an infinite scale. So, you see, it's big. It's very big because it's our nature. So we don't die. We're forever. We're immortal. Our DNA is forever. It's energy. We are the biology of infinity, as I said. This is who we are. We are infinity ourselves, but at the biological scale. We're this species. We're an amazing species. So you see, then time is relative. Because the reason why we have this low down dormant DNA, that it kind of limits us to this very, low state of consciousness, is because of this moon. But once that's gone, then we're back to normal because it's automatic. Everything just goes up again. But you needed the first humans to defeat the system, right? That would stare at the sun, the pioneers. That would stare at the sun so we would liberate ourselves from the system. So we can go back to who we are, the central species, which is what we've done. But it takes time. It takes time. And you see, these are, like, you think about it, it's like, wow, but these guys just talking about these things. So yeah, exactly. Because this is the time. Because as I said, the here and now is the only thing that exists. I've said this many times. Because we're infinite. So in the future, because of our DNA, it's not going to be this. We're immortal. So we're just going to, if you're alive today, most likely you're going to live for the rest of existence. Because the moon's not going to be there. So we're going to go back to our full states. Our infinite DNA, who we are. Not dormant. But you accelerate the process faster when you stare at the sun. And you start loving, because those are the mechanisms. Those are the key that unlocks your DNA. The reason why I was able to defeat them in the first place and to do everything that I've done to unlock her DNA for everybody was because I love with the highest energy of creation, which is the human heart. And because I stare at the sun. And I was able to put those two together to be able to accelerate myself outside the system and defeat them. Right? So I can do this for everyone, which is what I've done. That's why my face is everywhere. Because they were waiting for me. As I said, I'm an ancestor of those who manufactured this planet, and they knew exactly who I was, so they were waiting for me. But they were all defeated. They're all losers. So now they're just normal humans living their lives. They have nothing else to do but to live their lives and accept the terms. Have no choice. So that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Because we have done it. We are free. We are the human race. Okay? This is who we are. We're infinite love, infinite energy, infinite creation. With the Republic of Planet Earth, this is who we are. Humanity, I love you all with all my heart, with all my might. I love you all with all my heart, with all my might.